This is the Lord. Go to Australia.
What is this? A joke? Or could this be the adventure we've been waiting for? People today discover adventure in many different places and activities. Speed, power, risk, travel. Going their own ways, they seek excitement and pleasure. God leads His people to adventure on a higher level, an adventure in service. What is an adventure? A story with a beginning, a story without an end. God is moving the Bence family, Phil, Kathy, Angela, and Elizabeth, to a new chapter in their adventure with Him down under, in Australia, the land of koalas and kangaroos. Australia's larger than I thought. It's nearly as large as the continental United States. Despite its size, its population is less than that of New York City. Why does this modern, westernized country need missions? Church membership rolls boast an overwhelming majority of Australia's people. Yet few attend church regularly. Even fewer possess a living relationship with Jesus Christ. Most seek adventure in secular pleasure. God had a different adventure planned for Australia. As recently as 1973, the faithful core in 5 Wesleyan churches couldn't guess what lay ahead. The hurdles looked large. Numbering less than 100, they wondered how God could reach Australia through them. Today, 5 churches have grown to 60. 100 members have multiplied to 1,000. God has worked miracles. This growth during the last 16 years is phenomenal, but millions remain outside the kingdom. Who will tell the Australians of Christ? Who will stem the tide of secularism? Church planting in large cities remains a number 1 priority of the Australian Wesleyan Church. In the last 5 years, Wesleyans have founded a growing church in Canberra, Australia's modern capital. Many people would consider this quite an accomplishment. But there's more. During this same 5-year period, the Wesleyan Church has planted 19 new Australian churches. But if the Australian adventure is to continue, more leaders must be trained for yet more churches.
Kingley College in Melbourne seeks to prepare men and women for Christian ministry. Dr. David Wilson, an Australian, heads up the teaching staff. Gifted Australian instructors work alongside a small number of North American missionaries. At Kingley, 40 students commit themselves to full-time study, both in classroom work and church experience. 70 others study on a part-time basis at the main campus, extension classes, or through correspondence. Soon, each student will be pastoring, planting churches, or using their new skills to minister to all age groups in Australia. Kingley's ministry reaches beyond Australia to students from places as far away as Sierra Leone, Malaysia, and Hong Kong. Their Kingley experience equips them for service among their own people. We have been chosen by God to teach at Kingley College to join in the Australian adventure. In order to strengthen the college program, Australian leaders prayed for additional teaching staff. Specifically, they needed persons qualified to teach preaching and Old Testament. To answer that prayer, God began working on us on the other side of the world, in New Jersey, where Phil and I were pastoring. Did God send us straight to Australia? No. Our adventure began in Scotland. It was in Scotland where Phil completed his education, a PhD in preaching. Meanwhile, God developed my love for the Old Testament. Throughout this time, God was preparing us for teaching at Kingley College, all in answer to the Australians' prayers. Then the phone call came.
This is the Lord. Go to Australia.
Bill Foster, Wesleyan pastor and teacher in Australia, became God's mouthpiece, calling us to Kingsley. In February 1990, Kathy and I will begin teaching, working with students God has called to their own adventures in service. The Australian adventure now lies before us and before you. Join us. Contribute your prayers and gifts to maintain the forward momentum in Australia. Wesleyans there plan to establish over 100 new churches in the next 5 years. You play a vital part in our ministry. Your adventure may come to you right where you are. It may take you abroad on a work team, a 1-year short-term project, or you may be hooked for life. God may not call you on the telephone, but be listening, be watching, be open for the great adventure God is planning for you.